So the next pattern we're going to do is a pattern courtesy of our Mr. Mark Thomas, the CDC Dry Fly. Yes, yeah. So I'm going to start off by putting down body. Not sure I've got the right glasses on. Now, I'm just going to change the little butt section to something a little bit different, because I think this will show up a little bit better. Just 2 turns of orange glow bright. I'm going to put a little bit of hare's ear or squirrel fur around the body. No need for a rib on this. What's it look? Okay. And again, I've got quite large CDC here. I'm just going to put 3 of these together. Make sure all the tips meet. Stroke the
just out of shot, Mark, your preparation there.
So it's difficult to do. I would normally do this on my lap.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It's not easy.
But that looks good already, that fly.
Right.
It does.
So we're going to just put them on. So
brilliant. F-wing.
Similar.
Yeah.
One of the most successful patterns I've ever fished with. I use it a lot. CDC.
Yeah. I mean, there's really no need to overcomplicate these patterns at all. You know, they work because they fish in a particular way. There's no need to over egg them at all. I feel anyway. Certainly with the numbers of flies I end up losing in trees anyway. So just putting a little bit on the head.
Wow.
Tidy them up a bit. There you are.
What a brilliant fly.
That looks
That's
good.
a beauty.
Yeah, that definitely catch.
I tried it with the red earlier on, and because of its fluorescent light, it doesn't really shine up that well.
On the butts?
Yeah.
On the butt.
Yeah.
I mean, it does in daylight, but it's not brilliant under the camera. But I mean, that's an orange there. There's a famous fly, the Walker's great red sedge, where he uses an orange butt. And I think it looks a lot better, actually, than the red.
Is it a number 7?
Number 7, yeah.
Number 7, for all you chaps who are looking for the numbers. Globite number 7, there it is. And that, Michael, is a fly, very similar. Remember, we were fishing on the tests at Wherwell, and I was casting under those trees. The fish near the car park, and they're very, very fussy. And I caught that lump, and they were refusing, or they're being fussy, and it was on one of those, a very similar pattern, CDC Sedge. You're on mute there, Michael. I've asked you on mute. Thank you, Mark.
All right, I see. Thank you for that. That's good, but that's a nice context, Will. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now you can tie this pattern up with a little bit of deer hair in the wing as well. If I put that on.
Oh, that's a nice looking fly there. Have that, but that fly, that first one, that CDC shuttlecock, I've seen Gav fish that for years and years. Huey, I'm sure you've seen him fish it. Very simply, puts like one CDC plume in the top, ties a quill body, like a peacock quill. We'll come on to that, Mark Thomas, at a different stage, where you get the peacock quill and it segments the body really nicely. If you've seen those flies, you put a bit of varnish on it. Another thing I was going to say, a lot of chaps now, Mark might kill me for saying this, instead of varnish, you can put a UV resin on there. And I know this is more kit to buy. You can slap the Sally Hansen's on there, but make sure it's dry before you start doing anything with it. Yes, thank you, Michael. You can put a UV resin on there and then put a UV torch and it will harden instantly. The only thing is with those is they can be a bit tacky. I've used them for quite a while now. So I put a coat of Cellar normal Vineyards varnish over the top once it's dry and then let it dry. Then you get a smooth finish and then you get a very quick result with the varnish.
I think the UV is a bit of a pain. I think
it can be a bit of a pain. So
I use it on the joining lines together.
Yeah, exactly. If I found if you put the UV resin on, not too thick, apply it a little bit at a time. You can get the thick resin and the thin. Thin resin, be normal bodies like that. You put a thin coat on, put the UV light on, and then put a thin coat of Cellar varnish. You're away and good to go. And also with the length of those fibers, I struggle with proportions. Mark was saying, make sure they're kind of the correct length. If you're at the stage where you've just tied them in and the curve is facing up like that, you're about to fold them over. You can fold them over and check the length before you tie in the thorax. So they're folded over and you can have a look at the length over the eye. And if you're not happy, you can just untie them and then move them up or down.
Yeah.
But if you tie them in and then chop off the butts and you've tied in the thorax and then you fold it over and they're not the right length, you're in a little bit of hot water there because you can't really go back.
Good job cutting them. You're cutting off the best bit of the feather.
You're cutting off the best bit of the feather. So those are the additional tips I would say. Hello, Miriam. How are you?
Hello.
How are you doing?
Hello.
Guest appearance.
Yes.
Makes the best cakes in town.
How are you? Yes, thank you for your
I'm glad
cake.
you like them.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
The more you take them away, the more cakes you get.
Oh, nice. oh, he's more hurt than angry there.
That's a double-edged.
Yeah. Yeah. But interesting, I've never fished them on the lakes, Frank, before.
No, that method we use. Well, if you're fishing in the weeds, you just use one fly, and you use about 10 pound fluorocarbon.
Really?
Well, yeah, because they go straight in the weed. They go, because if you're on the up in any of the arms, you're only in about 6 foot of water.
Yeah.
So the trout goes absolutely crazy. He won't go up. He'll just go through the weed. He'd do like an 80-yard run.
So what pound fluorocarbon is it?
£10.
£10. Golly,
Yeah.
£10.
£10. If you use 8 or 6, you just
where have you been, buddy? £10.
£10. I've never used £10 fluorocarbon in
But
my
it looks
life.
really weird on a like a size sort of 14 hook, because it sort of hinges like that. But take my word for it, you need it.
Yeah.
Well,
And then if you're just fishing in open water, I fish those shuttlecocks and then an F-wing just in front of it, say 4 foot in front. And on any particular day, one fish will be going for the F-wings, not the shuttlecocks, or vice versa. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's yeah, I think the heaviest I've ever fished is £6 because I fish more rivers. So when I've gone to Abington, for example, they won't let you fish less than £6.
Right.
yeah, we'll cut you out of going to that place.
Whereas when I went down to the Y with a couple of friends, and they lent me, I think, no, Peter wasn't with us, and they got £3 fluorocarbon out, and I just couldn't believe it. £3 fluorocarbon, and the fish fleek. But it's amazing with the right rod, how much welly you can actually put on a fish with £3.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be surprised. They at night in Ireland they fish on the shore. Huey, Willie was telling me that, and Tommy, they fish with £5 Maxima. And
they fish with £5 or £6 all the time.
Yeah,
they never go. They never go lighter. You know.
Because but that's about the top whack, and I was surprised. But then one evening I hooked a salmon of about £8, and I couldn't do anything with it. And then I got broken again another evening.
What did you have up?
Yeah, I had one, and a chap called Kevin, who Willie knew. He had a white van, Huey, and he'd been up to Marsk or somewhere, and he had a murret on the van, which is a giant sedge. I'd never seen one in real life. It was honestly this big. And he was fishing, and I hooked this fish, and it went in. It was near Limes, Huey, and there's that, you know, that where the stones are opposite Limes.
Yeah.
The stones show, and there's a big pool there, and the water was up about a foot, and this fish had gone in there into a snag.
Yeah. What breaking strain had you up?
I had about £3. I just let it go, and it just went
on a high river as well.
On a high river, yeah, it just went like that, and I had you'll kill me, Huey. I didn't even have a drag on my reel. I had one of those click reels, and I was fishing a 2 to 3 weight rod just for enjoyable wet fly fishing in the evening, and it took a Mar Lodge. For anyone watching if they see this on YouTube, it's not a Mar Lodge salmon fly. It's tied on a 12. It's a variation.
Yeah.
And he came up to help me get this fish out, and Kevin, and he took 2 steps into this pool, and he was up to his chest, and I was just above below my waist. So this pool was big, and the salmon had gone in there, and he just broke me off. So I learned my lesson then. I did not fish lighter than that, but mainly in the day you'd be okay. But there was some lumps over there.
The water would be a bit lower, you'd be fine. You know.
Yeah.
Then when it's
I think it's all to do with your rods as well, isn't it? To be honest, if you fish in the right rods, the right line will work for it. To be honest.
Yeah.
Not in a high run of water. With a salmon, you would have no hope with £3.
No, I had 2 hopes. Bob.
You know the story about the biggest salmon that was ever caught in Hare?
No.
Right. Well, a fellow called Ollie Hubbard, he netted it. Did you hear the story about him?
No.
He became as famous as the salmon because they were getting the salmon. He went out and he pooed his trousers.
Don't we all at some stage?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, he actually did when he was netting the salmon. The biggest salmon was ever caught in the shore. He netted it, but he had a mishap. Yeah. So he became just as famous for that as catching the salmon. You know?
Good heavens.